Mindset Revolution with Raquel. Get ready to be transformed.
This thing always takes a couple seconds. Welcome to Mindset Revolution with Raquel. I am so excited to have today's guest, Paige. This is one of those beautiful things where it's so important for entrepreneurs to network, because then you can find other people who are doing things that are similar to you, and can really add value to your audience. And even though we do things that are somewhat in the realm, we kind of cross each other here. Sometimes I hear entrepreneurs like, why would you bring somebody, or why would I bring somebody who on my podcast or to my audience who does something very similar? And it's like, if you believe this is an abundant universe, then act like it. if you believe that there is more than enough for everybody, then sow the seed and open the doors for other people. I can't serve everybody. Paige can't serve everybody. But we know that as you're listening today, you're going to get something juicy for your inner wellness. Because I truly believe that you will prosper and be in health as your soul, which is your mind, will, and your emotions prospers. So if you want so anything, it's going to start with your soul prosperity. And that ends up impacting everything, especially your health and your psyche, which is why I'm so happy that Paige is here. So Paige, if you can let us know a little bit more about yourself.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. So glad to be here. Thank you for having me. So, I am a subconscious health practitioner, and I help clients process emotions, patterns, programs, things that are trapped in the 95% of the brain, the part that's responsible for manifested dis-ease, disorder, dysfunction, and emotional life stress. So essentially, anybody who's struggling with any type of dynamic, whether it's relational, health related, soul related, I have a really beautiful integrative practice that helps incorporate Eastern, Western medicine combined. And what I love about what you just shared, Raquel, is like, we are all so unique and different. And in this abundant universe, we might be talking similar principles, which is such a refreshing experience for other people to really understand what you're talking about. But it's also the way that we do it is so unique and different that it feels so much like we can complement each other as well.
Yes, absolutely. So for those who maybe don't understand, I think especially people in my realm and my audience, it's like we mentally ascend to that. We know that the subconscious is running it. We know, I mean, we're taught it, we're like, oh yeah, I know that. But the problem with having that thought of I know that is that what are you doing about it? That if you know that, because when we're having a conversation, you're like, yeah, I know about that, then how can we start to actually implement some practices to really start to reprogram ourselves? What would you suggest, or what would you tell people of really the importance of the subconscious, and maybe what they don't really understand, in order for them to maybe take it a little bit more seriously, because that's really an open door to create their kind of dream life that they're looking for?
Absolutely. It's a fantastic question, especially because I've been talking to folks recently about how awareness is necessary. It's the first step, but it's not the only step. It's just our foundation. So we might understand the subconscious is running our entire lives, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, and behavior, but that's not enough to shift it. So your question of like, and then what, is so valid. And it's what I really love to highlight with people in session as well as just in natural conversation. So once we have the awareness of like, boom, there's a trigger, right? Whether it's, oh my gosh, my body's starting to shake, or I'm having internal sensations of not feeling safe. That's the moment of awareness where we know that this program, this experience is coming from somewhere else. So the first question to ask is, where is it coming from? And this question is going to drop you deeper into your own internal guidance of, do I have reminiscence of an age that I'm wanting to connect with right now? And then maybe we start allowing this picture to formulate where we're like, hey, I feel really young. Okay, let's go deeper into that. How young do I feel? Right? So we start doing this internal navigation where we're going to locate a time. Even if we don't have a specific age, we might have this inner guidance that's taking us to a past life or to something in our ancestral lineage that we need to be communicating with. And that part, once you can isolate it, you have this agency within you to navigate, to steer the direction that this part wants to take you. So This part might be a 7-year young part that's like, wow, I was in an environment at this age of complete withdrawal of emotion. I could not communicate. I was not able to show up in my authentic expression. I was pathologized and shut down. And this 7-year young part right now wants to tell me, I got you. Right? I got you. So once you're communicating with this part, it might give you a voice, or it might start to show you an environment that you need to tap into. And once you can locate that root for yourself, we can upgrade that cellular memory of that part to bring it back to present and know that our present experience and our past experience are different. Because when we don't know the root or where it's coming from, we're starting to live out these multiple timelines at once of like, I can't find myself in time because I'm living this past life, this present life, and this future life all at once, and they're very disjointed. So we have to come to a place of full integration with these parts that are getting our attention, and we always have the guidance, we always have the answer. It's just about taking a moment in your day to separate yourself from wherever you are, wherever that trigger happened, get quiet, center yourself, and ask these inquiry type questions that you might ask a friend or you might ask somebody on the other side of the couch when you're in session with them, right? Does that help? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. And I wanted to add, if I get my, there I am. There's a couple of things. So one thing that came to mind was not everybody believes in past lives. However, science is showing us there is some relevancy to that because, you know, in our epigenetics, our cells hold memory for like the 4 generations from each parent, right? So then you have all this stuff. And what happens is that if something is happening in a family, by the time the 4th generation, if it happens like poverty, think about poverty and how you see families that are, you know, in this cycle of poverty from generation to generation. By the time it gets to the 4th generation of poverty, it now becomes encoded. We are walking magnificent AIs. So now we're born with this coding, a hard code of poverty, for instance. That, think about it like it's a program that's getting executed. And the way it gets executed is through observance. So if you have now that code or that propensity to have a poverty mindset or start making decisions that will keep you in poverty. Some people think that they're not in poverty because they're making a lot of money. But I know people who make over 6 figures, 7 figures, and they're still living paycheck to paycheck. Let them have a failed launch and everything falters. That's only because you have money. It doesn't mean you're not in poverty because of the way you're managing the wealth. And so this gets executed by observance. Your observance is your environment, which is why, like when Paige was talking about awareness, you might be like, well, I don't believe in past lives, but you do have generational information coming into your body. And as those get observed, they get turned on. Yes. And this is why conversations like this is so important to say, okay, if you feel like you're like, I'm making a lot of money, why can't I hold on to it? It could be that there's something in your bloodline that came through that then got turned on by observance, your environment. And so you were able to break out of that current environment and make more money, but you're still having that poverty mindset because you can't hold on to it. And then those triggers come in, and that's the awareness part that I wanted to touch on with Paige. And I love that when you're talking about, the timelines converging when your past, your present, and your future, because, when we're recording this, it's actually in January, but you're hearing it in March, and just turning on the year. Everybody's doing New Year's resolutions by now, have maybe already broke them. So we're like trying to do things for the future, but then you're like, why is my past coming up, or why am I feeling that way? It's because we're in these different dimensions at the same time, and when they're not in agreement or they're not healed, and in order for you to be able to move forward, it's like what Paige you're saying, you're disjointed. I mean, like, why can't I go 2 steps? Why am I going 2 steps forward and 1 step back? That perpetual cha-cha. Like, I'm tired
Perpetual
of this dance.
cha-cha. Yes, this perpetual cha-cha. You make it sound actually more pleasant by calling it that than it is. Yes, but I love everything you're bringing up. It's so spot on. The epigenetic processing part of it, where we can unlock our genetic expression, we can locate those archived memories, and we can upgrade the cellular expression of them to match your present frequency, to match what your heart desires for you, which is so much more powerful than what your mind wants it to be. And so you don't have to believe in past lives. And in fact, like, I'm a very spiritual person, but I do not require that, because it's not a spiritual system. It's an emotions-based system, and emotions are energy in motion. And when the emotions get stuck, there's a charge that is no longer neutral, and that charge starts developing as physical symptoms and emotional stress. And exactly what you said about the people who are making money but not keeping the money, it's a frequency. It's nothing about what we perceive. It's like, it's not about what's in the bank account. It's not about how much money is coming in. It's how we actually relate to that thing. And so much of what we do together in session is we go into the perception, we go into the limiting belief that gets triggered, and we locate why it's there, what it's holding, and how we can really create a new frequency of intentional, authentic expression. And so the awareness part is, like we said, like the foundational step. And then from there, we have a choice point. It's like, what am I going to do about this? And I love the 4 generations back on both sides of the family. I feel it can even go beyond that, but then we border the line between what is this life and what is a past life. And sometimes, like, people who are really tuned in can feel the ancient nature of some pattern that they're coming in with. And what I have found to be so disorienting for myself and for so many others is not having the why. And I've had so many conversations with people about how important is it to have the why, right? Like, you go to therapy and you're like, what's wrong with me? Like, I'm broken. I can't fix this. I've always had it. And we have all these stories about what is the root, like, what is the thing? And we can't actually get to that on a conscious level. And we have to go journeying into the subconscious to find out what it's wanting to say and what it wants to express. And so I've had so many of those stories where I'm like, oh, I just came into this life with it. But that doesn't mean that we're destined to suffer. It means that we have to have the right tools and resources to know how to communicate with that part.
And that's what's so important too, because we're not stuck that way. One of the things, I would be considered like a triple minority, being a single mom, being a woman and Latina, and actually 4 now because I'm 48. So, to other people, I have 4 things against me. Right. But what happens is that what we identify with, and you touched on the heart piece, and I'm a firm believer that how we see ourselves and what we identify with, that's our limitations and that's our boundaries. We can't go past how we see ourselves and how we identify in that thing. And as being a minority woman, I have found that a lot of times that'll slip out from other minorities. I can't because, or people are always against me because of the color of my skin, or because I have, a vagina. That's a technical term. I shouldn't be like black for that. That's what it's called, so. Totally. But, sometimes when you have that, like, when I was growing up, I was fortunate enough to have parents to say, it doesn't matter. They're very blue collar anyway. They really believe that, you work hard, things are going to happen. And it doesn't matter that you're a woman. It doesn't matter that you're Latina. It doesn't matter, because, if you're all in and you're doing what you're created to do, you're going to be just fine. And that's as much as they knew for truth. And that was good enough as my foundation. So when people ask me things and they're like, they'll say things and I'm like, why? I don't make my gender, like, it's not full. My gender is not forward. My race is not forward. Me being a single mom is not the thing in front of me. I actually love those things. I celebrate those things. I'm grateful that I am who I am. But have you found that maybe people, when they don't have the right identity, that it really amplifies maybe those things in them that's keeping them back?
100%. And none of it is their conscious choice. It's not their fault because they'd never choose it, right? And so what's so important about what you just shared is that we're all unique with subjective experiences. And so for you to be in the position that you're in, with like your identities, multiple identities as a single mom, and everything you shared about being Latina and being a woman, Other people who are exactly those qualifiers on paper are going to have a completely different experience. And what matters about that is that this is about upgrading not just your external environment, but your internal environment. And they're co-occurring. Your external environment that you just shared about when you were young is that you had parents who believed that those things didn't matter and they shouldn't be things that held you back. And that actually programs certain belief systems within us to live out those systems. And other people who are in an environment that's traumatic, where they do actually find hindrances and maybe they've been societally programmed to believe that way. Again, it's not their fault. It wasn't their choice, but we do have an ability to do something about it. So when we upgrade our internal sensory experience, we can start filtering our life through that experience. And we filter life through our eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and sense of touch. Everything that we're interacting with on a day-to-day basis actually programs new frequencies into our experience. And so there's a way in which we can go in to past moments and upgrade those environments that we were in that weren't helping for us or weren't helpful. And we can create new environments. And so when we have people in our lives who are like, oh, I just need to move, or, oh, I just need to break up with this person and I'll feel better, or, oh, I just need $1 million and then I'll be happy. Those are such conditional ways of loving, and they're such contingencies because it's not addressing the internal memory that was stored within us at whatever age that was stored.
That's so good. Oh man, I should have wrote down when you were talking. There was something that you just said that I was like, oh, let's talk about that. There was this point of, social feed. Thank you, brain. So I normally tell, I say this a lot to people that, and in my world, when you hear sirens, that means this is important.
I love that. Yes.
bells, any dings, all of a sudden. Your social feed is feeding you. This is a attention economy. Everything is vying for your attention, and that is how you are paying for it. Remember when we were young, there was a pay attention. Now you are paying with your attention. And what people don't realize is like what you just touched on is that everything is frequency, everything is feeding you through your eye gates and your ear gates. And that is the predominant way things are coming at you. Our eyes are having like trillions of pieces of data that it's trying to do something with. And so are our ears. And so I hear people like, well, I can, hear this or watch this or, and it's not going to impact me. And I'm like, well, it impacts everybody else on the planet. You're not immune to this. So we are not immune to the social feed. Can you touch a little bit more about how important it is to really guard our eye gate and ear gate, especially if we're trying to move or trying to shift this thing in us, trying to, like you were saying, really collapse the timelines here and be able to move into those things that we're dreaming of, our vision boards, our goals, the ideal self, whatever it is that you're touching on, and how that really impacts us that we're not even, again, aware of in a subconscious basis.
Absolutely. This is so my favorite conversation. So this is what I love to call the mental emotional diet. People have heard it before. It's like what you're ingesting in your environment is energy. And so if you have a cluttered space, that's impacting your internal nervous system and your ability to feel safe and grounded. If you are watching scary horror movies or you love crime thriller shows or whatever it is, like that's fine. That's your choice. Consciously, you can handle it, but that's 5% of your brain. Subconsciously, there's going to be impressions that are made instantaneously. Again, it's not your choice. We don't tell our heart to beat. It just does. It's autonomic. We don't tell ourselves to breathe. It just happens. It's autonomic. Same thing when you are ingesting material, and this can be books, it can be music, it can be anything and everything. It can be in relationship with somebody or a conversation with somebody or an encounter or traffic or sirens, right? Like the way we perceive something is all a program based on past experiences that we've had. So if we're watching a horror film and in the moment we love it because present day us is like, I'm so into this drama, it's triggering a past part of us that actually wasn't okay with it, but maybe had to be in survival in order to process that information. Mm-hmm. So many people are not discerning because we've disguised a lot of our sensory experiences as normal or as things that we love or their hobbies or their passions or whatever it is. And again, it's like no disrespect to each their own. You choose your life, you choose what you want, but there are going to be frequencies that are more welcome in your aura, in your environment, in your energy when you say, yes, I want to watch this really dark thing. And so it's not without repercussions, but again, we're not destined to suffer. So we can still be intentional about, I'm going to watch 30 minutes of this thing that might be a little bit edgy, but I'm going to clean my space after, or I'm going to sage, or I'm going to shed whatever it was, or I'm going to create a bubble within myself so that I'm not taking it on. And there's just decisions we can make every single day to be really sensitive to our processing centers, the ear gate, the eye gate, right? And anytime I see a client who's in the thick of a trigger, I help them be preventative and reactive, meaning they'll be able to prevent the trigger better, but they'll also be able to respond better on the other end with sensational experience. So if that means a frozen clementine, if that means essential oils, if that means grounding stones, if that means ambient music, we have to constantly be aware of how intimate these sensory centers are.
That is so powerful because, you know, especially with things like music, where we don't understand that when we like a beat, we're moving our body and now our body's coming into resonance. And I always tell people, they're like, oh, I really resonated with that. And I'm like, why? They don't ask themselves why. And they sometimes, you know, they're like, well, I really resonate with this person. But resonance is only agreement. It means there's something in you that's the same as something that they're delivering, they're saying, they're showing up as. And that's all it is. So I have found like a lot of times in these spaces, they really just want to be around other people who resonate with them. But if they're in the same pain cluster and they're in the same negative spiral, now you have a collective that you're part of that creates these narratives to keep you in bondage. Especially with a lot of spiritual people where they're like, you know, I've known, you know, having a label of empath is like, well, a lot of them would say I'm an empath and I always attract narcissists. Uh-huh. No. Are you an empath because in your environment, your gift of being able to discern and read body language got triggered because you had to read not to set somebody off. Right. How to talk to them, how to like, you know, so then you learn again through the environment. Now you call yourself an empath and now you keep on saying and being around the environment of I always attract narcissists and most people are not narcissists. We just throw that around. That's a clinical term. But you will, but if you believe that, it's like what you were saying, right? If you believe that, then you keep on magnetizing yourself, being drawn to that frequency to make you right. And then you're like, see, I'm right. I'm super psychic. No, you're not. You're actually playing out the program. So we have to be so mindful. Again, it's like, just ask why you have resonance with that thing. Like that thing you were talking about, horror movies. It's interesting because I grew up on horror movies because my mother used to play them all the time. All the time. She loved horror movies. But when you said that, I'm like, oh, from her past, she had a very traumatic childhood. Very traumatic. And so I never understood why my mother loved horror movies. And like right now she's changed. She actually doesn't like them at all because she's gone through therapy and all this other stuff. And she's really shed a lot of the things and healed through the things that happened to her as a child and a young teenager. And so it's funny that you say that because I'm like, oh, that's what happened to mom. Right. She was really attracted to the horror movies. And then in that environment, we were introduced to them. Like that was something like scary, fun, rush of adrenaline. Right. But then my sister and I, as we grew older, we found that we're healing through things and, you know, we're in different environments. We're not attracted to those things as much. Sometimes I like to watch them. My bonus son, he loves horror movies. So I'll watch it with him sometimes. And then it's just fun. And then we actually just giggle through it. Like, oh, you know, we have a jump scare or then we'll like talk about it, like you said, like to shed it, right? Absolutely. But that's interesting. Like ask the question. When you were talking about the crime, I wanted to laugh, but I was holding in my laughter because they said there's so many women who are watching, you know, like Snapped, like how she got away with murder. And that's how they relax, and that's how they go to sleep. And like men are like, the men who are married to them or living with them are like, I don't feel safe in my own house. This is what my girl does to relax, and she's watching how she can get away with the perfect murder.
Oh my gosh. And that's so brilliant, right? Because it's not just about our internal nervous systems and what happens when we're watching those things, but it's about how we impact the people around us. And we have to ask the question. My girlfriend loves watching those shows too. Like you have to ask the question, like, what is it about this person's frequency that's really drawn to this? And they can think that it's innocent or, like completely harm-free or stress-free to watch something like that. But subconsciously, again, there's something else going on. And so we always have to account for that other narrative. And what I love doing is bridging the gap, as we've been talking about all day, between the part that we can't see and what we can see, and making it so clear that like, oh, that's not in my best interest. I used to love certain types of music. I'd go like headbang at shows, and it was my release, and that was fantastic. But it was also shocking to my nervous system, but it was what I was attracting at the time because I needed it. And so it's not about shaming or blaming ourselves for having our vices or having our coping skills, but so much fusion has occurred in society that we don't even know what to look at anymore. And we don't even know what is a blended versus an unblended part of us. Like, where is our agency versus where is our coping skill? And then the spiritual bypassing starts happening, which is what I'm hearing you talk about with the empathy. I just did a video about empowered empathy because so many empaths make arguments for their limitations. So many people make arguments for their limitations, and they're like, I'm an empath, so I can't be on a podcast. I'm an empath, but here I am, right? Like, I'm an empath, but so I can't be in crowds or whatever it is. And it's like, there's a way to hold both of those things, but you have to separate what's the story versus what's the reality. And every time we have a belief, it's a programmed part of us. Every time we have a thought that we wouldn't choose to think, it's a programmed part of us. And so, it's like conception to 7 in this lifetime is the most impressionable that our brains developmentally are. And we're not in control of what's happening necessarily with the parental decisions that are being made or the associations that your mom has to horror films. And maybe for her, it's comfort. And then maybe for you, you're nostalgic when you watch it. And then for your kid, it's fun. And you get to start translating or transitioning your association with these things in a way where its frequency doesn't take you over. So you get to be more discerning, and that's generational healing, where epigenetically you're not bringing through into other generations what has come before you. And that is so powerful.
Yeah, I'm loving this conversation. I can keep talking to you probably for another couple hours because it's so fascinating. Before we move on to another thing, how much time, sometimes people are like, okay, this is really good. I see that I have to change my mindset. I really need to start, putting myself first. This is an act of self-love and self-care when we start to the and what after our awareness. So what is your recommendation of maybe where do they start? Like if they wanted to start, I love the things you said earlier because I think they'll make really great journal prompts when that trigger comes up. So they can use that as journal prompts when that comes up. Great set of questions that you brought up for people to ask themselves. Is there anything else that you can recommend that people can do just to start to nurture themselves in the right way?
Absolutely. So I have a few resources that I always love to share with people who are on this journey. So before jumping into any type of work, like if you were to see me in session, this is a really good way to just prep your mind and prep your frequency to start shifting. We want to massage the energy field and not go from 0 to 60 because we don't want to shock our system. So I always love to recommend the book, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, because you can heal your life, and it helps bring the association between physical symptoms you're experiencing and the emotional roots that are associated with that. When you start using books like You Can Heal Your Life or anything by Abraham Hicks, I also encourage your reading it is part of your mental diet. So you start, again, energetically shifting just to align with that material, that resonance that we talked about. Beyond that, when it comes to movies, maybe once in a while swapping out those murder films for the Heal documentary. The Heal documentary on Netflix is one of the greatest inventions of all time. Helps people know that they are designed to heal no matter their life circumstances, their belief systems, their diagnoses. And in alignment with that, there's also 2 movies called E-Motion. E-Motion and E-Motion 2.0. Those are free. You can find those online. You can Google them. And all of these resources are also on my website. So you can visit my website, innerrealmwellness.life, innerrealmwellness.life, and all of those will be there for you as well.
That's awesome. I'm just like, yes. I'm gonna, people always like, what should I binge on Netflix? The Heal.
Yes.
That's what you should binge watch for your soul and have some self-care and just watch it in pieces if you have to. But amazing recommendations. And I know that there's a couple things we wanted to touch on before we close out this podcast. And one of them is your upcoming event in March. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Absolutely. So I, among a bunch of other amazing, incredible women, are going to be speaking at something called the Women Thrive Summit. This is really about women rising up and helping each other, supporting each other, loving each other, empowering each other. This is going to be a really unique 4-day summit. So it's March 20th to 24th. And it will be running all day, and it's going to be live, which is really unique because most virtual summits these days are all pre-recorded. And what's good about having it live is that we have the rapport, we have the community connection. You can pop on, pop off, see the people you want to see. I will be talking about how to heal subconscious programs in order to master your conscious life. And it's going to be an absolute granular dissection of everything we've talked about today. And it's going to take it even further of like, how do we do this? And so you'll walk away with tips, tools, tricks to really hack that subconscious mind. So the Women Thrive Summit, again, March 20th to 24th. And we'll have the link in the show notes for you.
Awesome. And you also have a free gift for our guests who are listening to us as well. Can you give them a little teaser of what they'll get?
Totally. So similar to what resources I just dished out for everybody here, there are so many mantras, affirmations, and resources that I give people as a starting place. It's a do no harm system, so it'll complement wherever you are in your healing journey. And if you're looking for more practices, I have this affirmation and resource kit for sustained health and wellness. And that's the free gift. It's really comprehensive. Again, it's whatever you want to start practicing. There's something there for everybody. So that's available at my website as well. So it's innerrealmwellness.life/free-gift. So innerrealmwellness.life/free-gift. And you will have access to that.
And that will also be in the show notes. So that way you're like, what was that again? We'll make it very easy for you. Just look in the show notes and the link will be right there for you. This has been an amazing conversation, Paige. Is there anything else that you would like to say before we wrap up?
The last thing that I would really love to leave this audience with, beyond the gratitude that I feel for you, thank you so much, is that we're designed to heal no matter what. We are designed to heal. And if there's any resistance within you, whether it's in the mind, the body, or the spirit, that is a program. And we want to go straight for that program because the truth unequivocally is that we are here to regenerate. We're here to be whole. And anything that's been programmed to make us feel otherwise is simply not true. But we want to honor that and move through it so that you can heal 100%.
100%. It's one of the things I tell people is like, do not make the grave rich. People go to the grave with unfulfilled purposes and dreams and goals and regrets. And so this is a way for you to get out of your own way. Sirens, get out of your own way, spend some time on you, invest in you because you are worth it. Whatever you're created to do, it really does ripple through time. Your life matters. And we love you. We're excited about what you are going to be doing. Let us know how you feel about this down wherever you're following this. And don't forget to follow Paige. I'll also have her socials and be tagging her in other places where you find the snippets. Until next time, may God's richest and best be yours. We're so excited. Thanks, Paige.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.